Hi everyone, this is Sonia Lal. Welcome to the interview series, Your Child's Best Future, How to Get Your Child into a Top College and Set for a Happy, Successful Life. We're doing this interview series to learn from experts who can bring clarity to the college admissions process for high school students and their parents. Today we have the privilege of Jody Okun joining us. Jody is the founder of College Financial Aid Advisors. She's helped thousands of families successfully navigate the financial aid process and open educational possibilities for their children, regardless of cost. She was a former financial aid consultant at Occidental and Pitzer College and was named one of the top 30 social influencers in personal finance and wealth by the Huffington Post. Jody hosts College Cash, a weekly Twitter chat devoted to connecting college-bound families with higher educational professionals. With more than 10 million impressions per week, College Cash is a top resource for parents and students. Jody has also been cited as a top 4 Twitter account on financial aid for students. She's also an About.com money expert and brand ambassador for Discover Student Loans. Her book, Secrets of a Financial Aid Pro, will be published soon. Thank you so much for joining us, Jody.
Thank you, Sonia. I'm so glad to be here.
Good. Tell us a little bit about how you got into the field.
So I started off by I took a class at UCLA. They have a independent college counselor online class, and I took the financial aid piece to the certification program. And the teacher of my class was the director of financial aid for Occidental College. And what I did was I actually ended up calling her and telling her that I really wanted to start helping families with financial aid, and I was passionate about students receiving post-secondary education, and I was going to be in the area. Would she mind having coffee? So when I met with her, we actually brought our online relationship to offline, and we had coffee, and by the time we were done, I began helping her at Occidental's financial aid office and working with her, and I worked there for about 5 years, and then I also worked at Pitzer College in their financial aid office, and also at the same time been helping families understand the financial aid process and also helping them from the point of view of what it looks like, from the financial aid officer, knowing what they're expected, because I think, it can get kind of complicated and scary.
Yes, definitely. With the cost of college education these days, so many people are wondering if it's even worth it. So definitely, I'm sure your advice is very valuable for students and families. Can you tell us a little bit about your book and how it's different from other books on financial aid?
Yeah, so I wrote Secrets of a Financial Aid Pro, and it is launching this summer. And, when I started on the book journey, I really wanted a book that stood out from other books. One of my my bucket list was I didn't want a how-to book because I felt like we all are in the industry where they're parents or helping families. We didn't want a book that told us how to complete the forms. We really wanted a book that sort of stuck in our emotional part of what other families were maybe going through. So I wrote the book, and it's definitely not a how-to book. It's an evergreen book that you can buy for students or parents or your sisters, brothers. You can pass it on and keep it. And in the book, I broke it up into 3 sections. First, starting in middle school, where families can start having the conversation with their students about college, or not even about college, but maybe what are their interests and how to have those dialogues. And in some sections of the book, I have specific dialogues that you can have with your student at the dinner table. And then the second part talks about high school, what's happening in high school during the financial aid process, and what does that timeline look like for families. And then the third section of the book really talks about college and after, because I know we focus so much on the college and the first day and getting into college, but what does life look like after college? And like you were saying, Sonia, what does it look like when it's time for us or our students to get a job, pay the rent, turn the lights on, money management, financial literacy. So I spend a lot of time talking about having those conversations early so you can, have them implemented, hopefully, in the end. And so it was really an exciting process, and I'm thrilled at this time to have it launch.
Great, great. Can you share with us some of those tips about how to instigate those kinds of conversations with students in high school?
Yeah, so I'm a huge fan of talking, having those, money conversations. So whether you guys, families are sitting down at the kitchen table, talking about, maybe what does it cost to buy milk, or, if your student is getting an allowance, or, what kind of, what are they thinking about and what interests them in maybe their future. What do they think they want to do, and what do they like to do, and what does that look like for them? And keep having the conversation, maybe even showing them the hard things that you're doing, like creating a budget, or how you save for retirement, or what it's like to have a home mortgage, or how to pay the rent. So the basics, financial literacy, which we tend to hide from our kids, we really want to show them how to do that so that it's not all of a sudden sprung on them after they graduate college and say, okay, now you need to run your life fiscally, but they haven't even practiced yet.
Yeah, that's very important. That's a really good idea. How does that play into, deciding where to apply to college and what field to study? Do you recommend that students look into that before they apply to college?
So I like students, I have a very tight niche. I definitely am in the wheelhouse of financial aid. So I don't move into the admissions section at all or any of that. So when I'm working with families or talking to families, I do want them to have a pretty deep list of schools that not only maybe the admissions person might say fit location, fit size of school, but I'm looking for financial fit. So how does that fit with the family? Do they have state schools on there? Do they have public schools in their state? Are they, I tell them don't be afraid of high private schools if they have lower income, because they might receive more financial aid that'll actually bring that college down to a state price or a public school price. So have a good fiscal fit list so that if colleges say no, and this is the first time that students might actually have someone else saying no to them, that they have a big list to make a choice from. If they limit themselves, then they might not have that big of a list.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Can I bounce something off on that, Sonia? I wanted to bring up the fact of filling out the financial aid applications that go with that. So I encourage families to not overthink, are they going to qualify? Are they not going to qualify? They should absolutely fill out their CFS profile if that school requires it, or the free application for federal student aid, to keep all the doors open so that only the colleges are closing the door and they never have to look behind and say, oh, darn, I should have done that. I want families to be knowledge and to be responsible in understanding everything that needs to happen in the process so that they have good choices when it comes to decision day.
Okay, yeah, that's very good advice. And how does the family decide what's a good financial fit list? You mentioned private schools, public and state schools, but how can you tell, if you get admitted, how much financial aid you're going to get likely, or, whether you'll be eligible for scholarships or any of that? Is there a way to do that?
Yeah, so I think that's a great question, and I think everyone really wants to know that. I think I actually want to, give it in three parts. One, every college has a net price calculator. So the net price calculator, parents, no matter what age their student is, can go on the specific college and go over to their financial aid section on that college website and use their net price calculator, and they'll be asked several questions. They'll be asked, what they earn, if they have any assets, how many people are in their family, and it will tell the family estimated, and I want to say in a ballpark figure of what they will end up or need to owe that college. So if the family has saved, then they know that, what they're going to use in order to pay the bill. But if they haven't saved, are they going to have a conversation? This goes back to the money talk. Like, are they going to have a conversation that says, we actually need to stay within our budget, and, maybe the state price is the price that we can afford? Or, if the family's not going to say no to the student and say, we know you've worked really hard in high school, and we know that, you applied to this school and you got in, and we want to support you, but, we might not have the means. And if they are, I'm not saying it's good or bad in either way, but if they are not going to say no and they are going to use student loans to help, they need to learn how to be a responsible borrower.
Okay, that's very interesting. So you go to the net price calculator, and then each school will give you an estimate of how much the estimated family contribution will be for that family.
Correct. Right.
Okay. And that takes into account, for example, the estimated amount of scholarships and grants and so forth that school would offer.
Well, it's gonna give you the estimated based on whether you're a needy family or a not needy family. But the other thing is if your student is eligible for merit aid, which that's not my wheelhouse, but let's say they have a great SAT score or a great ACT score, and their grades are a certain thing, they might be eligible for merit at that scholarship. But that net price calculator is not going to include merit on that piece. It's just going to include need.
Oh, okay. Is there any way to tell if you are likely to get a merit scholarship at a college? I'm not the admissions girl, so I don't really have the answer to that, and I think I might be stepping on some people's toes if I had that answer. But no, you don't really know. Each college has their own matrix of who they give their money to based on merit, whether it's test scores or your profile or whatever. So there is no way by using the net price calculator to tell if merit is going to be part of that conversation. Okay, interesting. Tell us a little bit about your work at Occidental as a financial aid consultant, what you did there and what kinds of issues would come into play, what advice you could give to families based on your work there.
So I always like to paint this picture of a financial aid officer in the sense that, like, let's use Occidental for example. When you apply for admissions or you go on an admissions tour, you arrive at Occidental. It's a beautiful campus, and it has a beautiful admissions office. And you walk in, and there's lovely couches and cookies and coffee, and there's so many people there, to answer your questions. And when students get into Occidental, they have this vision of this lovely atmosphere. But financial aid at Occidental, we are in a building in the basement, way in the back, and there's 7 of us in the office, and we're responsible for reading everyone's files. And so each family or student that gets admitted into Occidental, they then send lists to the financial aid office. So it's a list that comes to us. And as the list comes to us, we're actually a hard paper campus. So we still receive everyone's tax returns and their CSS profile and their free application for federal student aid. And the people that are in there, for example, myself and some 3 or 4 other people, we were responsible for analyzing the students to find out if they were eligible for financial aid. So we never saw the admission side, and we would have a stack of folders that would arrive on our desk, not necessarily in alphabetical order or anything, and we would have to hand analyze everyone and get them ready to be packaged if they were admitted to the school, and then create financial aid packages for them. The director does that on her own. And what I want to pass on to, everyone who is listening is that, we're really happy to answer all the questions we can. And anything that we can do to help the family, if there's something that you couldn't fill out on the form that you need to let the college know about, you should let the college know about it, because that's the only way we can help. The forms are black and white, so we only analyze based on the information that we receive. And I encourage students and families. I think my favorite days in working in financial aid were admitted student days, where I'd been reading files and files and files, and finally I get to meet the families, who completed their financial aid, and have a conversation with them and be able to put a face to the file, and that's always rewarding in our industry.
Great, great. What about, some people say once you receive a financial aid letter from a college that it's worth it to call the financial aid office and see if they can give you a better financial aid package, especially if you received a better package from another university. Do you have any ideas about that?
Well, my answer is twofold. So one, if the family's situation has changed fiscally from the time that they filled out the form till the time that they received the letter, whether they had someone pass away in their family or they have a job loss or a huge medical expense, then yes, absolutely, they should contact the financial aid office and let them know that there's something different, and then maybe they can update their financial aid. As far as comparing schools to one another, some schools, are only going to give what they give. There's a certain tier sometimes that might take comparing and give them a better letter. So it's sort of up to the school. So if families want to ask, they certainly can ask, and I'm sure that each college has their own director. They will be completely honest and let them know whether that's okay or not.
Okay, and if they do want to ask, how should they go about doing that?
They can start off with a call or an email and just, have a conversation with the college and say either our financial situation has changed and we wanted to let you know about that, or, if they want to call and say, I got this offer at this school, is my student eligible for more financial aid at your school, they're just going to either say yes or no.
Okay. So it sounds like, it's worth contacting the financial aid office if the family situation's changed financially then.
Yeah, that is the most, I think that's reaching out to them. I want to encourage families reaching out to colleges, having a conversation with the financial aid officer. They're there to help, and they're the people giving out the money, so you want to talk to them. And if your student is going to go to that school, it's going to be for 4 years. And if you are eligible for financial aid and you do need financial aid, those are the people you need to talk to.
Okay. And generally, when you get a financial aid package, that's for the first year, correct? That's not for all 4 years.
Right. So each year, families need to fill out their free application for federal student aid, and if that college requires the CSS profile, they need to be completing it every year in order to either get the same or different or higher or lower amount. If their financial situation changes, they need to take that into consideration. And as most of, everyone here, they might already know that financial aid is changing. And now the CSS profile will continue to go live on October 1st in 2016. And now the free application for federal student aid, the FAFSA, is going to go live October 1st for the first time ever. Okay,
so that means that students who are applying early action or early decision should have their parents fill out the FAFSA by October 1st? or when
Yes.
it goes by?
So because even regular decision students should fill out their application in October, because what if they're applying to a rolling admission school and that rolling admission school has decided that since their taxes will already be completed and if their IRS tool is already completed, then they might actually receive an award earlier if they get in earlier. So not only is this helping early action and early decision students, but it's also helping regular decision students and being more transparent to families so that they understand sort of what they're going to owe if their student gets into that college.
Okay, so let's say that you're applying to a university regular decision. Would you, which has a January 1st or January 15th deadline, would you still recommend that the family applies for financial aid through the FAFSA as soon after October 1st if possible?
Yes, the Department of Ed at the conference that we went to in 2015, and I'm sure, going back to the conference again in 2016, will still be encouraging that, yes, it's going to go live on October 1st, and yes, we should fill it out as soon as we can in October, even if the deadline, are you talking about the admission deadline is January 1st?
Yes, admission deadline.
The admission deadline, yes. So go ahead and fill it out because their taxes are going to be from the previous year, so their taxes will already be done, and so their FAFSA, they won't be using estimated numbers anymore. They'll be using true numbers for the first time ever. And so that's really a huge benefit for all families in transparency of cost of college.
Okay. And one thing that's interesting, it seems like the financial aid office often sends out the letters of financial aid after the student receives the admissions letter.
Correct.
So sometimes the student has to wait to really compare, which college is giving them their financial aid package.
Right. And, for right now, because we are moving into a changing year, rising juniors, have a new SAT score and, there's new applications and now we have a new FAFSA date. So, yes, I encourage families, if they can, if they're not obviously early decision, but if they're early action or regular decision, wait till you get all the financial offers that you can and wait till you get all your decisions and go back to the kitchen table and lay out all your offers and compare your direct costs from one college and all the free monies that you received, and then, find out what your direct actual costs are going to be and compare them across the board before you make a decision of where that's going to go.
Okay. And is it true that the earlier you fill out the college financial aid form or FAFSA, the better your chance of getting financial aid?
Yes. Yeah, so I think that, the earlier you fill it up, the more you hold your place in line, and you definitely don't want to miss deadlines. So in order to not miss any deadlines, especially this year, since, colleges may change their financial aid deadlines, they may not. They may keep them the same. But, I would have all of, the families that we have listening here or students, try to fill out your FAFSA right away. I mean, it's going to be corrected numbers anyways because they're actual numbers from your 2015 tax return. So go ahead and fill it out, and that way you're not pushing up against those state deadlines.
Okay. One thing that students and parents often wonder about is how much information to put on these financial aid forms because some of them are so long and complex. Do you offer any assistance in that process?
In what way? Can you re-ask me the question? In what way are you saying?
Yeah, let's say a family has to fill out a CSS profile. Does your office help them to do that kind of thing?
So what I do is I help families with the application process so that they understand, filling out the FAFSA, if they have any questions, and how the FAFSA applies to their families, and how they should fill it out, or and then the CSS profile, the same thing. How does it apply to their specific families? How to fill it out, in what way. So that it's filled out with the correct information and the assets that they have are completed in the correct place, and the correct parents are put on the application. Because I think sometimes nowadays it can get kind of confusing of who should be on the application and who shouldn't be on the application. So yes, that is what we talk about.
Okay, wonderful. Wonderful. And do you have any advice for students on taking out loans?
Yes, so my feeling is, and we talk about this a lot, with families, is that, you want to use all your free monies first. So anytime a student is offered a scholarship, whether it's a merit scholarship or a university scholarship, using all your, or state scholarships or federal scholarships, use all your free money first that you're offered. And if you don't need to borrow, just use your free money. But if there is a gap amount that you need to fill, and if parents don't have that money, or they do need to use loans, as part of the way to pay tuition, then, learn to be a responsible borrower. And if they do need to take out federal loans, find out what the interest rate is and find out what the terms are. The student loans that they're offered are student loans, and they're federal student loans through the FAFSA if they get those. And then if they do need to turn to a private lender to understand what it means to pay back a loan and how that's going to fit into your life later on after you graduate college, that you are going to have to pay back those loans. And so we really talk a lot about, not judging people on whether they take out loans or not take out loans, but how to be a responsible borrower.
Okay, great. And what about scholarships? Do you have any thoughts on what are the best scholarships that students can apply for? Or some people say don't even bother with scholarships because if you get one, the college will give you less scholarship on their end. Do you have any advice on that?
Well, I have, I've been in the industry for a while, so, I've met a lot of the owners of some of these sites, where they they're able to log in and students are able to create a profile. And what I've learned from all the people, for the past 10 years that I've been working with is that the scholarships that are out there, in order to earn or win a scholarship, some of these $1,000 scholarships or $500 scholarships, students need to apply to 50 or 60 of them. And so it's sort of a full-time job. And if that is part of the conversation, that families say, we need you to be part of this process, and applying for scholarships is the way we want you to be, then I wouldn't worry about whether they take $500 off or $1,000 or $22,000. If the student earns a scholarship and can get free money to go to college, then they should, apply for scholarships. So do I think it's worth it? I think it's time-consuming, but there is money out there. There's a lot of it, and it should be part of, how students can be part of the process, saying, I want to go to college, and this is what I can contribute. I can go ahead and apply for scholarships.
Okay. Yeah, that's very helpful. I know it's a very time-consuming process. And
yes.
And it's hard to know, like you said, whether you'll be eligible for a merit scholarship at a college or not. So
right.
That's one of the questions that I've been asked often. Another thing that I wanted to ask you about, Jody, is you have a very successful weekly Twitter chat. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so College Cash is my Twitter chat, and I started it about 4 years ago, every Thursday night at 5 p.m. Pacific or 8 p.m. Eastern. And that's where I have a guest every Thursday night, and we talk about everything in the college process. So it's not just about financial aid. We talk about admissions, essay, visits. I invite every week a professional industry professional or influencer on Twitter that comes, and I ask them, it's a formal chat, so I ask them questions about the specific topic, and they provide answers, and they're there to answer questions for everyone right there on Twitter. So it's kind of a fun, informative night that parents can tap into and get answers. In fact, I had the Dean of Admissions on from USC the other night, and that was kind of fun. He was pretty funny on Twitter and had a lot of great answers for parents. So I invite everyone to join us on Thursday nights.
Wonderful. One last question that I wanted to ask you before we end. Do you have any ideas on the 529 plan?
So if families have a 529 plan, that is considered a parent asset, and that parent asset would be listed on the FAFSA and the CSS profile as a parent asset, not a student asset. So that's the first thing. And the other thing is, I think if a family has a 529 plan, I think that's great, because I know probably as parents we all want to, if we can, contribute to our students' education. And so if you have a 529 plan, that's great. Use that money to help pay for college. If you have enough for the first year, go ahead and use it. If you have, more, you can use it the second year, or if you barely have any, use it. So that means that you can maybe borrow less in the end. So, use that 529 plan to pay for college. That's what you started it for, or someone started it for your student, and be happy that you have that, and that you have it's free, not free money, but money that you save, so it's a good thing.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Jody. It was wonderful to hear from you, and we look forward to your upcoming book.
Thank you so much for inviting me. Good to hear from you, too.